College is for late-night study sessions, instant ramen, and awkward first dates, not usually for organized crime. Yet there I was staring at my roommate, Tony, as he leaned in, his voice a hushed rasp. "I used to be in the Mafia," he confessed. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy like a puff of cigar smoke in our cramped dorm room. Part of me wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as some elaborate prank, but something in Tony's eyes, a flicker of something dark and dangerous, kept me silent. From that moment on, our dorm room wasn't just a place to crash after class. It was a stage for Tony's bizarre and unsettling behavior. He wasn't your typical college student. He was an enigma wrapped in a cheap pinstripe suit. Tony was a walking contradiction. He'd show up to class in sweatpants and a faded band t-shirt, looking like every other sleep-deprived freshman. Then he'd disappear for the entire weekend, returning late Sunday night, reeking of expensive cologne and looking strangely refreshed. He always had a wad of cash on him, peeling off $100 bills like they were going out of style. When I asked about it, he'd just shrug and mumble something about a side hustle. He never elaborated, and I learned quickly not to pry. Tony was full of contradictions, but one thing was consistent. A layer of nervous energy always seemed to cling to him. He was constantly fidgeting, tapping his foot or chewing on his thumbnail. It was like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to kick down the door. His eccentricities extended beyond his weekend disappearances and suspicious wealth. Tony had a peculiar habit of sweating profusely, even in our drafty, barely heated dorm room. It wasn't the normal kind of sweat either, the kind you get after a tough workout or a stressful exam. This was cold sweat, the kind that clung to him like a second skin, his brow constantly beaded with anxious perspiration. His eyes, usually a warm hazel, would dart around the room, never settling on anything or anyone for too long. Every creak of the floorboards, every cough from the hallway would send him jolting upright, his hand instinctively reaching under his pillow. I never saw a weapon, but the implication was clear. These weren't the actions of a regular college student. These were the mannerisms of someone who was constantly looking over their shoulder, someone who had seen things, done things that they couldn't outrun. The most peculiar habit of all, however, was his sleeping arrangement. Tony refused to sleep on his bed, opting instead for the old, lumpy couch we had pushed against the door. It wasn't exactly the picture of comfort, but he insisted. "If anyone's gonna come through that door," he'd say, his voice low and serious, "they're gonna have to go through me first." He claimed it was his way of protecting me, of ensuring that he'd be the first line of defense if trouble ever came knocking. While his words suggested selflessness, his eyes told a different story. They held a flicker of fear, a deep-seated paranoia that painted a chilling picture. It wasn't about protecting me, it was about protecting himself, about creating a barrier between him and whatever lurked in the shadows of his past. Living with Tony was like navigating a minefield of paranoia and unexplained behavior. His constant state of alertness was contagious, his anxieties bleeding into my own. The line between his reality and mine started to blur, his fears seeping into my subconscious. I found myself double-checking the locks on our dorm room door, my heart pounding a nervous tattoo against my ribs every time someone knocked. I started taking different routes to class, avoiding dark alleys and deserted hallways. My once carefree college experience had taken on a sinister undertone, colored by Tony's shadowy past. The most significant change, however, was my newfound habit of locking my bedroom door at night. It was a small act, a simple click of the latch, but it provided a sense of security, a fragile barrier between me and the unknown.